Bishop, good to see you again. A professor from Liberty University I was listening to the other night on television, and he said that the persecution of Christians and the migration of Christians out of the Middle East is one of the stories that is being missed by the secular press. Do you share that opinion?
I think the secular press is missing it. I don't think we're missing it here on the Currents, on the news program. They're very clear about showing that. It is a tragedy because it will leave the Middle East without Christians and without Catholics, who are a good portion of the Christians in that area. Is it specifically aimed at religion? Well, there's a part of the radical Islamists that really want to destroy everything that's not their brand of Islam. They want to insert Sharia law, and not every Muslim sect is acceptable to them. So certainly the Christians are not. So it is a tragedy that's not being reported on, and certainly not being acted on by the major powers or the United Nations.
Yeah. The American policy in the Middle East seems to be schizophrenic. We seem to be giving money to the rebels over there, but at the same time, an Armenian bishop recently said that all of those rebels in Syria are 100% terrorists, you know, that they're linked with links to Al-Qaeda. I mean, what are we doing there?
Well, I think it's a sad misunderstanding of the situation. You have a dictator, true, benevolent in some ways, malevolent in other ways. And you've got people who wanted to overthrow him, but then they were joined by terrorists, anarchists. So it's such a mishmash, it's hard to separate out what exactly is the problem there, and how you're going to solve it is really the problem. But you have all kinds of factions on all sides of the issue, so it is a problem.
And now what we see that Al-Qaeda seems to be taking over many of the cities in Iraq that we had liberated. Where does America's responsibility lie, moral responsibility? I mean, we went in there to free these people, and then we pulled out, and now they're being overrun again. Do we have any further responsibility to these people?
Well, I think we should, certainly if it's not with troops on the ground, but there should be some assistance to them so they can defend themselves better. I think you can see in Afghanistan some of the same situation playing out, where the president was having secret meetings with Al-Qaeda, probably trying to shore up things because he knows that when the U.S. is gone, they're a target. So who knows? I mean, if you're not in those situations, you don't even have an idea how do you solve them. When we get involved, we've got to have a long-term commitment. It just can't be temporary, because these problems are long-term. They're not fixable in the foreseeable future. They're really long-term issues. And if we are involved, we've got to stay with it.
Yeah. The Holy Father will be traveling to the Middle East, to Israel, in just a couple of months, and he's going to have to tread a fine line there, because we want to defend Israel. We want to be with Israel, our brothers in the faith. At the same time, we're concerned about Christians, Palestinians, who we see being abused by the Israeli government. What do you think the Holy Father is going to say, and how do you think he'll act when he goes to the Middle East?
Well, I can't foresee what's going to happen. Again, obviously, he's going to Jordan and Israel, and so he's trying to balance his presence between the Arabs and the Israelis. So I think that's a positive thing. Again, these animosities go so deep and are so long-term that it's very difficult to say this is the way to do it. Now, I thought there was a little hope when they had started to have some good negotiations, and they're still continuing. It's not impossible, but unfortunately, the U.S. has a lot of influence there, and we need to exercise it properly so that some peace can come to the area.
Yeah, you know, as Catholics and as Christians, we want to be people of peace. But sometimes the solution doesn't seem to be a peaceful solution, and it involves military might. Can we, as Christians, be on the side of might sometimes?
Well, I think that's not our tradition. I think, again, we can have self-defense, but war is a solution to nothing. And I think there's got to be negotiations. There has to be clear policies, clear objectives. But starting a war for the sake of winning a battle is wrong. If you have to defend yourself, it's something else. So I think we really have to be careful about how we intervene.
Good. Bishop, thanks so much for being with us again.